guys, King here, bringing you a review on the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find the Movie. So yeah, this is going to be a spoiler review, so yeah, if you don't want to get spoiled, I suggest you don't bother watching this, and if you've already seen the movie or you don't care about getting spoiled, then sit down, grab a cup of coffee or tea or some popcorn and enjoy the analysis and review I'm going to be doing regarding this film. So yeah, first off, was this a good film? Yes. Did I enjoy it? Yes. Would I recommend it? Yes. So go ahead, watch it. That's my review on it. No. Obviously, the hype on this film, I think, has been sort of 50-50. On one hand, you know, people don't know what to expect. On the other hand, it's a film that goes back to the Wizarding World. I mean, it's been a few years since we've gotten one of these, and it's done by J.K. Rowling herself. It was written by her, the story and the script. So yeah, this is an original piece of work. I mean, this is not based on a book. See, unlike The Hobbit or Star Wars Episode 7, which was all about the nostalgia, and you know, that was about that adaptation, this is an original piece of work that is, yes, it is a prequel. It is set in 1925. And it takes place before the events of Harry Potter, which took place, what, in the 1990s? But yeah, so all of this is very, very new and very, very different, and yet it's got that familiar, nostalgic element to it that will make you, you know, as a fan, if you're a very hardcore fan, you will watch this and you will notice all these different little Easter eggs, and you'll eat it up and you'll be like, oh wow, that was wonderful. But of course, in terms of newness, yeah, this film does provide a lot of new different things, because for one thing, it takes place in America. It takes place in New York City, so we get to see and explore the American side of the wizarding world and industry compared to the British side of things. So yeah, like I said, this movie is not an adaptation of a book, so already original work. So this is something that J.K. Rowling herself had to plan out beforehand. One of the things I love about the Harry Potter books is the fact of how well detailed the books are, and how well it all comes together like a puzzle and just fits so well together. Like the way the first book, Philosopher's Stone, sets up a lot of details and elements that come to pass in book 7. The way a lot of things are set up and explored in book 2 that come to pass in book 6. A lot of ways that things in book 3 are mentioned and developed and come to pass in book 5. And in book 4 obviously takes it, you know, it's got things from book 1 coming back in book 4, and then things from book 4 and 1 being answered in book 7. So there is that nice, neat ring theory to it, with the 4th book in the middle, and then book 3 and 5 here, and then 6 and 2, and then 1 and 7. So it all comes full circle. It's a series of books that when you read from the beginning to the end, you see how well planned J.K. Rowling had them done. And you know, obviously there are a few changes here, you know, mainly character deaths, but the details on the plot structures, that was all planned beforehand. You can see that in her writing. And with this film, honestly, I feel like it's the same kind of thing, because this film is packed to the brim with lots of little hints of what's to come, and lots of little Easter eggs, and lots of detail. And that is why, for a lot of fans and people, audiences, maybe this film drags properly. Because I mean, when I was watching it, I felt like this movie was really, really long, and I had no problem with that whatsoever. I was enthusiastic about it. I was head deep into this movie, paying attention to every little thing, because this movie is an introduction film. This movie is setting up for other movies to come, and you know, with that in mind, you need to pay attention to everything that is being said and shown, because there's a lot of stuff in this film that is set up for what's to come next. Every single line of dialogue, every little single thing mentioned or shown is something that is going to be vital in the later installments. And yeah, it's like, it honestly feels like watching a book come to life. Like, it does feel like a big adaptation of a book, and it's not. And yet you can see, you know, J.K. Rowling's, you know, signature sort of writing or structure in this, in the way you see things and how they're presented. So with that in mind, yeah, this film, in terms of what it does as an introduction, it's really done well. So from a story perspective, yeah, you really need to keep your ears and eyes open. But I can understand the complaints when people say that yeah, it drags a bit, it's too long, or it's a bit boring and slow. But that's important because it's taking its time to develop the world we're in, and it's taking its time to develop and introduce these characters who are going to be very, very focused on as we continue on the series. Now, as for our characters in this movie, which consist of 4 main characters in this film, just like the Harry Potter franchise, which consisted of Harry, Ron, and Hermione, along with technically Neville Longbottom, who was there in the first book in a lot of moments that sadly did not make the cut of the film. He was very vital as well, so in a way it was always really about those 4 characters, with Neville sort of becoming the unsung, silent background hero later on during the course of the story. And in this case, it's not as similar, but in the day it is about these 4 main characters, which consist of Newt Scamander, Tina, Jacob, and Queenie. And all of these 4 characters are very vital in terms of what they do and in terms of how they move the plot around. And it also, you know, they're very important in terms of perspective, because we get a lot of different perspectives from each of these characters in terms of how they see the other characters and how they see this world that they inhabit. Now, with Newt, played wonderfully by Eddie Ray. I don't know the actor's name, but yeah, Eddie is his name as it is. Yeah, he's the typical nerd. He's very anti-social. In fact, he's very similar to Hagrid actually, but whereas Hagrid was very lovable and cuddly like a big teddy bear, and actually was pretty cool with talking with other people and getting to know them, Newt's character is very more silent and down to earth. He's the type of person who would prefer to talk and chill with his magical creatures than sit in a room sharing dinner with people, like with normal people, wizards. But yeah, he's definitely the hero of the movie, because by the end of the movie he grows to also learn and appreciate the help of other people while trying to teach other people about these magical creatures of these and how they're not dangerous. And then you have Tina's character, who's pretty much this ex-Auror character. You know, she was an Auror in the American ministry, Makuso, I think that is what they call them. And during an incident which involved child abuse, she got in trouble for it. She tried to stop the abuse, and yeah, she got downgraded from a position down to a more lower class job position. And since then, she's been trying to work her way back up. And she runs in with Newt, finds him, finds what he's out doing, and she's trying to expose him so she can get, you know, so she can make people realize in the ministry that she's still, you know, she's still got the skills as an Auror, but of course that kind of backfires with her. And during a moment when she's about to be executed, she comes to realize that even though this thing that she did, where trying to stop the child abuse, got her into a lot of trouble, it was still the right thing to do. So in that moment, she kind of realizes that, you know, screw the rules, screw this whole oppressive kind of government-like thing. You know, they're not doing anything about it. You know, I did the right thing. I did what I thought was right, and I'm going to do what I still think is right, and I'm going to help Newt. And that's what, by the end of the movie, she comes to understand and care for his character. Also coming to an understanding that, you know, the magical creatures aren't as dangerous as everyone would like them to believe. And that's the different perspective of her character, because she comes to understand that, no, there is something about this guy. You know, he's a British wizard, she's an American wizard, so you kind of get the different perspectives of these characters from each other. Like, he comes, you know, he's coming to America, and he's new to this world, so we're following him for his journey here in this unknown world. We already know what the English wizards are like, and you know, because he's an ex Hufflepuff student who studied at Hogwarts, and he's coming here. We already know what his character type is like, obviously, but we're seeing the world of the wizardry American world from his eyes. And we're seeing the world of an English wizard from Tina's eyes, along with the fact that this is a guy who deals with magical creatures. So we're seeing the perspective of how good magical creatures can be, and not as evil as everyone makes out to be from her eyes as well. And then we have Jacob, who's a no mage, aka a muggle, and obviously he comes into this film by accident, and he ends up getting involved with the misadventures of what Newt does. And by the end of the movie, him and Newt pretty much become very good close friends, and we see the perspective. In a way, he's basically us. We're the Jacob in this movie, because we're the normal guys, and we're going into this world with him when he's astonished, he's excited, he's confused, he's terrified, and by the end he's learning something. He's learning that, you know, this world is a lot more bigger than you thought it was, and the way he, by the end of the film, he grows to appreciate it. That's a different kind of perspective, because we're sort of seeing the surprising, magical perspective element from his point of view when he is working with Newt and helping him sort these problems out. And then of course you have Queenie, who is Tina's sister, and again she's also a witch, but she also has the extra skill of being able to read minds. Now this isn't like Voldemort, Snape or Dumbledore, who did a spell and they could read people's mind. No, she can literally read their minds. She's got this very unique skill that allows us as an audience to see into the minds of all of the other characters like Newt and Jacob, and see what they're thinking and what they're all about. And her character is all about, you know, learning the meaning, you know, learning about muggles basically, and coming to appreciate them, and also Newt's inner struggle and demons, because there's obviously things in his past that are haunting him. And you know, we find out that he was excluded from Hogwarts. We don't know why. There was a certain incident which also probably involved a certain character by the name of Lestrange, who was Newt's former love or best friend. We don't know what happened to her. We don't know. All we know is that something obviously happened that caused the relationship to break down. I imagine it's similar to what happened with Hagrid and Moaning Myrtle. Obviously this character wasn't killed off, but there was obviously some sort of incident. Maybe she betrayed him, maybe something happened to her and it was his fault, and that's why he got expelled. We don't know, but it actually does kind of harker back to the original series, because you know the way Dumbledore sort of helped Newt and then, you know, probably kept him out of jail as it is probably the same regard as to why Dumbledore would later on help Hagrid and make him the groundskeeper, because he's probably seen that kind of incident before, so he's helping him out. So it's kind of a nice callback to that. It's a way of developing Dumbledore's character, even though he's not in this film. And yeah, that's another thing about this movie in terms of the foreshadowing and Easter eggs and development, and obviously nods to the movies that are going to come, and to the movies or stories or books that we've already had. And that's the clever sort of writing that J.K. Rowling throws into this specific movie. Because even though Dumbledore's not in this movie, from the way the characters act, from the way the stories unfold, from the things that we discover, it is a nice nod to his development as a character of Scream, in terms of what he later does with other characters. Like I say, Newt is pretty much similar to Hagrid, and whatever incident that happened that caused him to be expelled is pretty much very similar to what happened to Hagrid involving Tom Riddle. So a lot of nods and poetic rhythm being drawn here, and parallels, if you will, history sort of repeating itself. But yeah, these four core characters, they work very well together. And you know, this isn't a children's movie. That's another thing. This isn't a children's film. You're not seeing these actors, these characters as children growing up. These are adults. And over the course of these movies, which, you know, take place in 1924 all the way up to 1945, not now obviously, as we go on, that's the end date for the last movie, because that's when Dumbledore and Grindelwald have their final showdown, because that's what the next few films are going to focus on. For now, this movie is all about introducing the main cast of characters and, you know, building up the themes and the plots that are going to come later on down the line. And I think it does a very good job of that, and the characters in this film are very unique in terms of what they do and how they behave and how they act, compared to the characters of school children that we had in the previous movies. Now, first of all, this isn't really an action film, okay? It's an adventure film, heavy on character development and drama, and building up this side of the magical world. So, if you're expecting going into the scene explosion 24/7, you're not going to get that. This movie is all about sort of the calm before the storm, really. And it's about, you know, these animals, these magical creatures, these brilliant designed creatures from the mind of J.K. Rowling, and they are the main stars of this movie. There are several of these creatures in this movie. Not all of them get time to shine, but the ones that do are you know, they are shown in spectacular fashion and in very exciting and funny scenes. And that's the thing about this movie. This movie is very, very funny with the humor. I mean, every time it cuts to Newt and Jacob's misadventures, it's all about the laughs and the hilarity that ensures. But then, of course, this movie's also got its own sort of serious, dark side tone that it jumps to here and there, developing the character of Credence, played by Ezra Miller, and the character of Graves, played by Colin Farrell, which the film focuses on when it's going a bit more dark, into darker territory and seriousness. Now, the tones might feel inconsistent at times, because it does deal with child abuse as well, and other elements like execution and such. But by the end of the movie, it all does come together. So it doesn't feel as jumbled as it might look. It might not work for some audiences, but it works here. It's a nice balance between the two of comedy and humour, and magical, lovable, sweet moments to very dark and serious and messed up elements. But yeah, as I was saying, magical creatures are the highlight, and we do get several of them in very exciting scenes. My personal favourites being the Niffler, which is this tiny, cute, duck-billed platypus looking like a magical creature that just steals. Now, you know, anything shiny it sees, like gold, money and jewelry, it just tries to take all of that, and it looks all small from the outside, but it's all big in the inside, like the TARDIS from Doctor Who. And you know, the way it just grabs all of this and just sticks it in its little stomach and hides it in there in itself, it's just weird to behold. And the Niffler definitely is definitely the highlight when it comes to some of the humour. So yeah, and it's also the one that sort of kickstarts the adventure because of a little incident that it pulls that causes all the trouble and misery to occur. And then, of course, we have my second favourite one would definitely be the, I don't know what it's called. It's called the Sprouting Death or something. It's got a very weird, sinister name to it, and it's like a giant, it's like a giant bat that turns into a ball that Newt has captured and keeps around because of its venom, because he's trying to synthesize its venom into a cure of some sort, which ends up being used in the end of the movie to wipe the Muggles' minds after they've witnessed a very big magical incident. So yeah, that's a very important creature in the movie, and it does play a role in terms of saving and helping Newt and Tina and the others escape from the Makusa department when they're about to be executed. So definitely a weird, freaky ass creature. It's definitely a terrifying creature. There are moments where you're gonna jump, by the way, in this movie, because there are some very sinister, dark, scary jump moments when it comes to some of the creatures. But yeah, that one's definitely more of the freaky, creepy, cool side of things. You know, you got the cute and cuddly, and then you got that one. And then, of course, my favorite magical fantastic beast in this movie has to be the Thunderbird. No, I'm not talking about the freaking sock puppet Thunderbirds. I'm literally talking about a Thunderbird. It's a bird, thunder, like it's all gold, glittery, giant, big. It's like a giant hawk, a giant golden hawk that expresses its mood through the weather. Like when it senses danger and is upset, you've got thunderstorms clanging about, and when it's all peaceful and calm, it's all sunny and cloudy. So definitely very unique creature for this movie, and it's also the reason Newt comes to America in the first place, because he wants to release the Thunderbird in Arizona. He wants to travel from New York to Arizona to release this creature to its freedom. And yeah, that's sort of how these creatures sort of fit in the plot. The Niffler being the one that jump starts all the action by accident. The sprouting blood bat, whatever it's called, being the thing that ends up saving the day at the end, and the Thunderbird playing a very important role by spreading that, you know, memory loss cure to everyone at the end. So yeah, definitely those are definitely the three vital beasts in this movie. There are obviously a few others that you get a glimpse of, and another one that does play a main role when it comes to capturing it, this big giant rhinoceros hippopotamus thing that's got like a giant horn that's made out of lava that melts objects and trees. I don't know what it's called again, but yeah, definitely a very weird creature. It's more done for humor more than anything else. And then you have another one as well. You got two more. One that turns invisible and looks like a sloth actually, that can see the future, so it can sense when something's about to happen, and it moves to it acts before that thing happens, and that one's a bit more confusing actually. I don't know what you call that one. And then of course there's a giant snake, basilisk type of creature that can shrink to fit itself in the space that it's inhabiting, so that was definitely a unique one. But those ones are there in terms of setting up the action obviously and developing the characters along the way, but they're not very vital to the end goals in terms of how the story progresses. But very unique creatures to see, and as I said, they are the main attractions of this movie. That's what you want to see. You want to see the fantastic beasts, and you see them in all their glory. Not all of them, not enough, but enough to give you a taste of what's to come later on in these films. And since this movie deals with fantastic beasts, it makes sense that the main thread of this film is going to be a magical creature of sorts. And this film introduces us to the concept of the Obscuro. Now, the Obscuro in this movie is pretty much the main thread antagonist of the film. You also have Grindelwald, who's introduced in this movie, and he's also our main antagonist. He's pretty much introduced in the beginning of the film, and his presence is mentioned throughout by various characters, so he's very well built up. But then the Obscuro, as it's called, also appears right after Grindelwald's introduced as the main magical beast thread of the movie. And we don't know what it is at first, we don't know what it looks like, we don't know what it actually does, we just know it causes massive amounts of damage, and then later on several people are actually killed by it, so it definitely poses a huge risk and danger to anyone that encounters it. And over the course of the movie, we learn its name, we learn how people describe it, and we do eventually see it, we do eventually realise that it's actually not technically a magical beast, but a person. And it ends up being revealed to be the character of Credence, who is played by Ezra Miller. Now, the Obscuro is meant to be some sort of parasitic creature that develops in children from the age of 10 or 11 who are pretty much have traumatic lifestyles and try to keep their magical abilities hidden deep down inside themselves. And if they haven't learned by then to control it, obviously it explodes in uncontained rage and brutality. And yeah, when they explain that and when we see how it happens, I realized, when watching this movie, I realized that we've actually been told about the Obscuro beforehand in the Deathly Hallows. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably watching this part now and thinking the Obscuro wasn't in Deathly Hallows. Technically speaking, it was, in a very subtle way. Irina Dumbledore. If all of you, the fans who have read the Deathly Hallows, sadly this was not mentioned or brought up in the Deathly Hallows movie because they decided to cut all that backstory regarding Dumbledore, Grindelwald and his sister out. But there was a very, very important element to Dumbledore's backstory that was pretty much explained and talked about in the book. And it's brought up that Dumbledore's sister was attacked, and we don't know what exactly the attack consisted of, but she was attacked by 3 Muggle boys. We don't know what it involved. When they say attack, we don't exactly know what kind of detail it went to, but she was pretty much a kid who was displaying magical powers for the first time. She was witnessed doing it, she was attacked. It traumatized her greatly to the point where, her father was sent to Azkaban for trying to kill these Muggle boys for what they did. And because of her trauma, she tried to keep her magical abilities into herself. Like, she didn't want to be a witch anymore, and as such, her powers manifested in such a way where it resulted in her mother getting killed by her by accident. And later on, during the fight between Dumbledore, his brother, and Grindelwald, she tried to stop the fight, or got in the way of the fight, and she was accidentally killed. When we don't know if one of their spells killed her, or if it was her powers that killed her. Sorry about that. Thank you for the blessed yous. Now, obviously, the fact that it was described like this, and now we get this movie, and they make such a big deal about this parasitic creature, the Obscuro, and the way it acts and the way it behaves, it does sound very similar to what happened to Aria Dumbledore. So this is obviously a callback to that, and what it is, it's pretty much an explanation as to how or what happened, which is pretty much that she developed an Obscuro. And now when you realize that, when you sit down and you realize that from watching this movie and analyzing, and you realize how this all fits together now, because Grindelwald, who is technically the main wizard antagonist of this movie, is trying to find the Obscuro so he can control it and use it for his own ends. Now, where would he have found out about an Obscuro? From properly witnessing Dumbledore's sister having it. And obviously Newt is sent by Dumbledore's advice to do his job on magical creatures, to write manifest, and to also study and work on the Obscuro that Newt himself has captured, which he got from a young little witch who ended up dying. So when he tried to extract it from her, which didn't work out in it, obviously, because he's trying to find a cure, he's trying to find a method for containing this, or from removing it safely from people. So that obviously is meant to be a tie-in to Dumbledore and what happened to his sister. He's obviously, like I said, all the little Easter eggs, all the little foreshadowing by J.K. Rowling. Dumbledore's obviously sent Newt on a journey to research all these magical creatures and to also research the Obscuro so he can find a way to possibly cure people from this affliction that his own sister had. Grindelwald obviously witnessed this at the time when he was friends with Dumbledore, and now he wants to get his own one so he can control it. So it's all a nice way to tie it in to Dumbledore's backstory and to Deathly Hallows as well. So yeah, all the little hints, all the little pieces, they are there and they are starting to fit. So it kind of irks me when there are a few people watch this movie and they don't realise the little bigger connections that are unfolding here. So yeah, that is a very brilliant piece of plot development and detail by J.K. Rowling. That's a nice hunker back to the series in the future. But yeah, credits. So yeah, let's talk about the actual characters and the themes of this. So yeah, Credence is pretty much the Obscuro in this movie. He is an abused orphan boy who lives in an orphanage with his stepmother, who regularly abuses him, hits him with the belt and that, because she hates witches and wizards. She's part of a group of people who want to expose witches and wizards and kill them and exterminate them. And Credence's character, he befriends the character of Colin Farrell, who plays Graves, who's part of one of the auras of Makuska, and you kind of get this sort of fatherly son sort of relationship between the two of them, because he very badly wants to be part of the wizarding world. He knows what he is, I think, and he wants to be part of that, but he can't be until he helps Graves' character find the child that has the Obscuro. He doesn't know what it is, he doesn't know what he's actually planning to do with it, but he agrees to help him. And towards the end of the movie, it's discovered that he himself is this creature. He's the one who is this powerful dark being with this beast inside him. And by the end of the movie, he pretty much loses his mind and goes on a rampage. And Newt and the others come in trying to save his life. And this also ties into Tina's character, because he's the abused child that she witnessed getting abused by his stepmom. And when she tried to stop it, revealing herself as a witch towards her, she ended up losing her job for it. And this obviously all comes back and ties together in a way, and that's why I would say about the movie, in terms of its tones and its inconsistency maybe at times, it does fit together towards the end. So this is a movie that has obviously multiple storylines and plot lines that do diverge together towards the end in the third act. So it does work really well in terms of how it fits together. Now, obviously there's a big twist in this movie, and the big twist, this is actually a very big, important twist, so if you didn't see it coming at all, I suggest you stop watching this review now and buzz off. And if you don't mind or don't care, or you've already seen it, then yeah, sit around, because I'm about to spoil the biggest twist of this movie. Now, as we all know, Colin Farrell is the main villain of this film. We already knew this from a while back. We already knew he was going to play the main bad guy. I mean, you've got his character poster, right? And on his character poster, he's got the necklace of the Deathly Hallows. So obviously, right there and then, we already know that this character has some sort of connection to Grindelwald. But the big twist of this movie, at the end, is that he is Grindelwald. Throughout this entire film, Grindelwald's character is built up and mentioned, and then at the end we get the big reveal that no, he is Grindelwald in disguise, and it's Johnny Depp. If you all didn't know already, Johnny Depp is playing Grindelwald in this movie. It's only a cameo, like a 1-minute cameo. He gets captured, he gets revealed by Newt, and we see him in all his glory, all his pale albino glory. It's a nice look actually, I don't mind at all. It's very different looking for Voldemort. He also sort of looks like a vampire of sorts, like a dark reflection of Jack Sparrow, but it's definitely unique, and I'm definitely looking forward to it because I am a big Johnny Depp fan. Not a huge Johnny Depp fan, but I like him as an actor, and I do enjoy his performances, so I am looking forward to seeing what he'll bring to the table with the later sequels. But yeah, his character is defeated a bit too easily in this movie. But I guess that's their way of trying to not make him as too powerful as Voldemort, because you have to understand, Voldemort was sort of meant to be the big bad, big powerful of all the dark wizards that have come, and if you make Grindelwald more powerful than Voldemort, it's not going to feel as much of a threat when Voldemort ends up coming into power. So they have to sort of maybe sideline it down a bit, and that's kind of what they do here. But again, it is an introduction, and Graves, aka Grindelwald's character, is pretty powerful, as he is shown throughout this movie when they're doing a little fighting. And yeah, it's on one hand it's a very unexpected twist. On the other hand, once it's revealed that he's got that Deathly Hallows necklace, and he's given it to credits to News to call him if he should find the child that's got the Obscuro, it does kind of make you wonder, could he possibly be who he says he is? And yeah, in the end, that twist comes. It's just a shame they didn't do more with it. I would have preferred if Johnny Depp actually had a bit more of a role to play towards the end, instead of just getting captured and being revealed that it's him. I would have preferred if it had been revealed and then he had gotten a little action sequence, because he's taken out way too fast in this movie. But while he is meant to be the threat that is built up, he is not the main threat of the film. It is Ezra Miller's character credits, the Obscuro, that is meant to be the main threat, and it's obviously going to be a main threat that is going to continue on throughout the movies as we go on, because this is obviously a big tie into Dumbledore's backstory, and we are going to see that hopefully eventually. And speaking of Dumbledore's backstory, in a clever way, when you realize that Colin Farrell's character is Grindelwald, and when you do watch the movie again, you do get to the scene where Newt is being interrogated by Graves' character, and he even, when he's going through his records, he even mentions, he asks him what makes Dumbledore think so highly of him. So there's obviously something there that you don't notice at first, but when you realise it's Grindelwald, there's obviously some sort of jealousy and rivalry forming between Grindelwald and Newt at that moment. So it's very poetic and very, done very, very well. So yeah, this definitely was a decent twist. It's almost similar to the Krill and Voldemort twist. It's like a red herring in a red herring in a twist within a twist. So it does work out in the end very well. It just could have been better in terms of the action. That's my only complaint. Now, in terms of the special effects, visual effects, and the action scenes, obviously the visual effects in this movie, they are very good. I mean, there are sequences where there's destruction, and Newt's sort of using, he's using magic to rebuild the buildings, and towards the end we get this entire big sequence where the Marcusco wizards are going around fixing all the damage that's been caused, and you kind of see time go back into place, seeing the pieces falling into place. It's sort of like the Hong Kong sequence from Doctor Strange with the time stone. It's kind of similar to that. And yeah, when it comes to those kind of effects, it's really done well, especially with the action sequences. In here you've got the characters disappearing and vanishing and teleporting 24/7 as spells are being fired, appearing here, hearing there, jumping from place to place, and it's very fast paced and very hectic at times as well, but it works to its advantage. And yeah, it's great. It's a great bit of quick actions between wizards and witches, and obviously with the animal part, the fantastic magical creatures action sequences, they're the best moments of the film, because that's what you want to see more of. But when it actually comes to the special effects regarding the creatures, it's a bit of a hit or miss, because you can tell that it's special effects. That's the biggest problem. You can tell that they are special effects. You can tell that you're looking at a computer screen and not technically a model, which is one of the disappointing things about this movie, because on one hand, it didn't annoy me as much, but on the other hand, I just couldn't help but notice it. But my biggest complaint when it comes to special effects has to be the goblin or elf characters. I'd say the goblin characters, because you are shown, there's a sequence where they go to a nightclub that's owned by a goblin played by Ron Perlman, and it's just such obvious CGI that it's just it takes you out of the film, because it's kind of annoying, because it makes you think back to the Harry Potter movies where they used actual actors to portray those characters, and here it's just way too obvious, and it's like, why did they do that? And it's all because they wanted to cast a big well-known actor for this one role, and it's just, yeah, it didn't ruin the film for me at all. Not at all. Nothing about the effects in this film ruined it for me. But if you're one of those people who is very, very attention focused on how obvious the effects are, then it might ruin the experience for you. So that's one negative really I can say about it. Good effects, good action sequences, definitely a good, it is a story that is probably hard at first to take notice of, but if you're a hardcore fan, I mean a really hardcore fan that takes notice of all the developments and characters and all the little things and nitpicks here and Easter eggs, then it does all come and fit together in a nice little bundle, and it makes you realise how good and structured and important this film is going to be for what's to come, and how well it ties into the other storylines. Now, this is another thing as mentioned as well. Would I say that this is actually a prequel to the movies or the books? And I'd say this is more of a prequel to the books. This fits in the book universe. The films, you know, like I said, the Harry Potter films cut way too much of important stuff out that it didn't develop. Now this movie might be used as a way to tie into both of those canon materials, the movies and the books. Maybe we'll get some Tom Riddle backstory, maybe not, because the year is 1925 and Riddle isn't born until 1928. He doesn't attend Hogwarts until 1938. They're already talking about casting a young Dumbledore, which is going to be very weird, because if you remember, Michael Gambon played Dumbledore in that flashback in 1938 when he goes to see Tom Riddle, and since we know these movies are meant to end with in 1945 with his big battle with Grindelwald, it's going to make me wonder, are they going to bring Michael Gambon back for maybe that last film or two, or are they going to stick with young Dumbledore throughout, because now the continuity is already out of whack as it is. So, but yeah, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, definitely a good movie, definitely worth watching. I definitely liked it. I can't wait to get this on Blu-ray when it comes out. I can't wait to see the sequel and the sequels after, because this movie just, it hit all the right spots. It introduced me to new characters that I love and like. It introduced me to a new world, a new part of the Wizarding world, and I can't wait to see that world being expanded upon in the sequels. As we all know, the next film is meant to take place in Paris, I think, France. So it's going to be great to see what the Wizarding world in France is like. And hopefully we'll get to see more different locations. I'm crossing my fingers for some Japanese or Chinese wizards. I mean, can you imagine? Samurai ninja wizards using samurai swords and shit, or kunai knives to cast spells, and that will be so wicked if they do that. But yeah, can't wait to see what they've got in store. Can't wait to see what J.K. Rowling's got in store. Definitely a nice, good introduction to this new world. Definitely a good starter. Might be slow paced, might drag, but it in the end of the day, it's all about the magic and that emotion, that feeling that you get from seeing it. So it's definitely worth watching, in my opinion. Definitely worth to sit through, and definitely worth getting excited for. Definitely worth the hype. So yeah, my overall score for this movie will be an 8 out of 10. Yeah. So I definitely enjoyed it, definitely liked it a lot, definitely recommend it. So give it a go, guys, if you haven't seen it already, and yeah, I'll see you soon. As always, like and subscribe, tell me your thoughts down below, tell me what you think of my theory, obviously, regarding the Obscuro, Irina Dumbledore, and Dumbledore's backstory, etc, etc, tell me what you think of that, and anything else that I might have mentioned in this, and yeah, I shall see you when I shall see you. Take care, and bye. It would have worked much better if I had a wand in my hand, because then I could have done a little swish and flick there, but no, this just looks weird now. Looks definitely weird. Take care, guys, and good night.